The night was heavy with rain, each drop beating down like tiny drums on the marble driveway of his sprawling mansion. Lights flickered in the distance as dark clouds loomed overhead, and the wind carried a chill that cut straight through the warmth of his luxury car. Jonathan Sinclair, a self-made millionaire known for his ruthless business acumen and ironclad discipline, was used to controlling everything in his life. The world obeyed his schedules, his plans, and his rules. Yet tonight, something entirely beyond his control slammed into his consciousness. As his car rounded the bend leading to his mansion, headlights glinting off the wet asphalt, he saw them. At first, he thought it was a trick of the storm, a pile of wet clothes or perhaps a fallen statue. But no, they were human. An elderly couple, drenched, collapsed on the driveway, their frail bodies trembling with cold and exhaustion. Jonathan slammed the brakes, heart racing, his pulse hammering like a warning drum. He had never felt anything like this, a piercing shock that went beyond curiosity, beyond concern, into the raw territory of moral panic. Time seemed to slow as he jumped out of the car, leather shoes splashing into puddles, water soaking through his designer trousers in seconds. The man was motionless, a thin hand clasped over his chest, while the woman's head rested awkwardly on the slick driveway, rainwater mingling with tears that Jonathan hadn't yet realized were streaming from his own eyes. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, please pause this story to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Every small action could change someone's world, just like it could tonight. Jonathan didn't hesitate. He scooped the frail woman into his arms, her body lighter than he had imagined, trembling violently as he carried her toward the front entrance. The old man, sensing movement, weakly raised a hand, but collapsed again with a soft groan. Panic gnawed at Jonathan's chest. He had never handled a situation like this. All the wealth, the cars, the penthouse offices, they meant nothing now. The only thing that mattered was life itself, fragile, fleeting, urgent. Inside the mansion, his butler, a calm and loyal man named Edward, rushed to assist. Towels were grabbed, warm blankets prepared, and hot tea set to boil. But Jonathan felt helpless. He sat by the elderly couple, shivering as much as they were, whispering reassurances he hoped they could hear. He tried to memorize every line of their faces, every tremor in their hands, every shallow breath, as if cataloging proof that they were real, not phantoms conjured by a guilty conscience. The couple gradually stirred, shivering violently, but alive. Jonathan draped the warm blankets around them, and for the first time in his life, he saw the vulnerability that not even money could protect. Tears streaked his expensive suit, but he didn't care. He had never felt more alive than in that moment when human fragility demanded humanity in return. It was only then that he noticed their clothes. Ragged, soaked through, and worn thin by age and hardship. Jonathan's heart clenched. How many nights had they spent in rain like this? How many times had hunger gnawed at their stomachs? He realized, with a painful clarity, that he'd been living in a world of artificial storms, constructed anxieties, and endless ambitions, while others faced real, unrelenting battles just to survive. He learned their names that night, Samuel and Margaret. Both in their late 70s, married for more than 50 years, with stories etched deep into their lined faces and calloused hands. Samuel had once been a carpenter, Margaret a schoolteacher, but poverty and misfortune had slowly stolen their dignity, leaving them almost invisible to the world. Yet, in their eyes, Jonathan saw something extraordinary: resilience, love, and a silent courage that defied the cruelty of life. Over the next few hours, Jonathan prepared a warm bath for Margaret and a hot compress for Samuel, making sure every detail of their comfort was accounted for. He offered them food, simple, nourishing meals that they devoured with gratitude, and listened as they spoke quietly, their voices tremulous but steady, sharing glimpses of their past. It was the kind of human connection Jonathan had long forgotten existed, a reminder that wealth and power were worthless without compassion. For days, he struggled with an unfamiliar emotional storm. He couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on deals, couldn't immerse himself in the endless pursuit of money. All he could think about was the frail couple who had appeared like angels in the middle of a storm, demanding nothing but receiving everything: care, respect, and the chance to breathe again. He saw their struggles mirrored in every neglected corner of society: the lonely, the hungry, the abandoned, and realized how insulated he had been from the very world that his money existed within. Jonathan made a decision that would change his life. He would not simply help them for a night. He would dedicate himself to ensuring that Samuel and Margaret, and people like them, had security, dignity, and a place in the world that so often ignored them. But he also knew he couldn't force gratitude or compliance. Respect had to be earned, love had to be mutual, and compassion had to flow naturally, not dictated by wealth. As the rain cleared and sunlight broke through the clouds, Jonathan took the couple on a walk through the gardens of his estate. Their eyes widened at the sheer scale of beauty and care surrounding them, but they moved cautiously, wary of ostentation and fearful of charity tainted with pity. Jonathan learned the delicate art of giving, not with condescension, but with empathy. Slowly, trust blossomed. He discovered that true wealth was not counted in currency or assets, but in human connection, in the ability to change lives without seeking recognition or reward. Weeks passed, and the transformation was mutual. Samuel regained his strength, tending to the gardens with a care and patience only decades of experience could provide. Margaret rediscovered her love of teaching, tutoring neighborhood children in reading and arithmetic, bringing joy and light to a world that had often ignored them. Jonathan found himself changed as well, no longer the cold, calculating businessman, but a man capable of patience, humility, and above all, genuine kindness. But the story didn't stop there. Jonathan's friends and colleagues noticed the change in him, initially skeptical, then inspired. One by one, he shared the lessons he had learned from the elderly couple, encouraging others to see beyond balance sheets and contracts, to witness humanity in its rawest, most vulnerable form. The ripple effect was subtle, but powerful. People began to understand that compassion was not a weakness, but a force capable of shifting entire communities. Yet, Jonathan never forgot the night of the storm, the night he had stopped his car, frozen in shock, confronted by lives so fragile yet so fiercely alive. It haunted him, reminded him, and propelled him forward. In the quiet moments, he often returned to the driveway where he had first seen Samuel and Margaret, imagining that same lightning strike of clarity, the one that had shattered his illusions and rebuilt his soul from the inside out. It was a lesson in humility, in awareness, and in the extraordinary power of empathy. The millionaire who had once thought he owned the world now understood that his true purpose lay not in acquisition, but in stewardship of kindness, generosity, and humanity. And for Samuel and Margaret, a simple act of concern had blossomed into a lifetime of safety, dignity, and belonging. As Jonathan stood one rainy evening, watching the couple stroll hand in hand through the estate, their laughter echoing like a melody he had never known he was missing, he realized something profound. The true measure of a person is not what they accumulate, but what they give when nothing is demanded in return. He had stopped in shock that night, but in doing so, he had found a life richer than any fortune could offer. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of kindness and human connection, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps spread the message that even small acts of compassion can change lives forever. Before the story ends, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below what act of kindness you've witnessed or experienced that changed your perspective. Sometimes, sharing these moments is the first step toward creating more miracles in the world. Jonathan Sinclair never saw the storm as he had that night again. But every time he heard rain pattering on the roof, he smiled, not out of fear or caution, but in remembrance of two elderly souls who had taught him the most vital lesson of all, that love, empathy, and generosity are wealth far beyond measure. And in the quiet, between drops of rain, he vowed never to take a single heartbeat, a single connection, or a single opportunity to do good for granted.